Have you ever trusted someone with your heart only to have it shattered beyond repair? In this raw, unfiltered confession, I reveal the darkest secrets of my life-me-toxic marriage, a betrayal so public it rocked the very foundations of my world, and the meticulously planned revenge that followed. You won't believe the twists, the shocking confessions, and the emotional depths I had to confront. Stay with me till the end as I expose a scandal that even CNN couldn't ignore, and learn how I turned my pain into power. This is not just a story. It's a journey through betrayal, despair, and ultimately, redemption. Trust me, you don't want to miss a single moment. I always believed that my life was a testament to the American dream, a journey marked by ambition and quiet contentment. Every morning I awoke with a sense of purpose, ready to face the challenges of my day as Michael Harris. My marriage to Samantha felt like the ultimate reward of beautiful partnership filled with promises of a bright future. I love you more than anything, I often told her, believing that our love could conquer any obstacle. In the early days, our home was a sanctuary where laughter echoed in every room and hope lit up the darkest corners. I still remember the sparkle in her eyes as she recounted our dreams of a life filled with success and endless possibilities. "We're building something incredible together," Samantha would say, her voice soft yet filled with unwavering conviction. As time passed, subtle hints of discord began to seep into our conversations, almost unnoticeable at first. I brushed off these minor disagreements as the natural ebbs and flows of any relationship, confident in our love. Our weekends were a mix of shared adventures and quiet moments, the kind that made every day feel like a cherished memory. "This is our little paradise," I once remarked during one of our late-night talks, completely unaware of the storm brewing ahead. Behind her warm smile, however, I started to sense an undercurrent of restlessness that I couldn't quite place. I began to notice that her eyes, once filled with only love, sometimes flickered with something unreadable, a secret perhaps. "Is everything all right?" I asked her one evening, only to be met with a fleeting silence that made my heart sink. Her reassurance was quick. "Of course, everything is perfect." But her tone left me questioning the truth of her words. Despite these moments of doubt, I clung to the memories of how we had once been, convinced that love would heal any wound. The foundation of our marriage was built on trust, and I refused to believe that it could crumble so silently. I spent countless nights reflecting on our early days, where every promise seemed eternal and every touch a vow of forever. "We're unbreakable," I would whisper to myself, trying to drown out the subtle hints of betrayal that began to haunt my thoughts. There were mornings when I awoke feeling a profound emptiness, as if the person I knew was slowly becoming a stranger. "I don't understand this distance between us," I confessed during one of our rare, honest conversations, desperate for clarity. Samantha would smile gently, her eyes betraying nothing as she murmured, "You're just overthinking, Michael." But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, that the paradise we had built was now a mirage. Each day, I meticulously recorded every fleeting moment of doubt, every whispered reassurance that seemed to echo hollowly in my ears. I never imagined that the seeds of our downfall were sown in the quiet moments of complacency, when I trusted too blindly in the illusion of perfect love. Chapter 2. The Unraveling of Trust. As the days turned into weeks, the subtle warmth in Samantha's smile began to cool, replaced by a distant and guarded look that left me perplexed. I started noticing the little Thingsure phone lighting up at odd hours, furtive glances at the screen, and a tone in her voice that hinted at secrets I wasn't privy to. "Everything's fine, Michael," she would insist when I inquired casually, her words too practiced to hide the underlying tension. But each time I saw her pause before responding, I felt the first prickles of unease seeping into my heart. "You never seem completely present anymore," I remarked one evening as we sat at the dinner table, the silence that followed more telling than any words could be. "I'm just tired from work," she replied, her tone dismissive. Yet I couldn't ignore the coldness that lingered beneath that facade. I began to question whether the comfortable life we had built was nothing more than a meticulously constructed lie, a facade that was slowly crumbling away. There were nights when I lay awake, replaying every conversation, every glance, desperately trying to decode the unspoken messages between us. "You're overthinking it, Michael," she would say whenever I brought up my concerns, her voice soft and soothing like a lullaby meant to quiet the storm inside me. But the more she soothed me, the more I realized that her words were an intricate web designed to mask a deeper, darker truth. I caught her once in a moment of unguarded vulnerability when she muttered to herself about feeling trapped, a confession that echoed in the silence of our bedroom. "I never wanted to hurt you," she whispered during one of those fleeting moments, leaving me torn between love and suspicion. My internal dialogue screamed that something was terribly amiss, that the woman I once adored was morphing into someone unrecognizable. The strain in our conversations grew palpable, laden with an undercurrent of resentment that neither of us acknowledged openly. "I just need some space sometimes," she would say, a phrase that sounded more like an excuse than an explanation, leaving me to wonder if I was witnessing the beginning of our undoing. I tried to ignore the warning signs, convincing myself that every relationship goes through rough patches, even the strongest ones. Yet, the chill in her demeanor was unlike any temporary phase. It was as if our love was being eroded by an invisible poison that neither of us could fight. I caught glimpses of a side of her that was harsh and critical, a side that emerged in whispered conversations with friends that I wasn't meant to hear. "I need to be free," I overheard her say one night, the words hanging in the air like a death knell for the future we had planned. The more I tried to piece together the fragments of our unraveling, the more I felt that I was dancing on the edge of an abyss I could not control. In moments of desperation, I confronted her gently, asking, "Why do you seem so distant?" only to be met with a brittle smile that masked her true feelings. "It's just stress, Michael, nothing more," she assured me. But the lack of conviction in her tone left me reeling. My instincts, honed over years of believing in the purity of our bond, now screamed in warning, urging me to look deeper into the cracks forming in our foundation. I began to document every incidenta missed call here, a hurried lie there as if each detail were a piece of a puzzle that I needed to solve before it was too late. The realization hit me like a freight train. I was trapped in a toxic cycle of denial and manipulation, where every comforting word was laced with the bitterness of betrayal, and every moment of intimacy was overshadowed by the looming specter of deceit. Chapter 3. The Shadow of Doubt. The nights grew longer, and the silence between us deepened into a chasm of uncertainty that I could no longer ignore. Every murmur of the wind outside our bedroom window echoed the doubts creeping into my mind. "I feel like I'm losing you," I confessed one cold evening, my voice trembling as I reached out for some sign of reassurance. "You're just imagining things," came the soft reply that left a lingering bitterness in the air. My thoughts spun wildly, each moment of her dismissal fueling a growing paranoia that gnawed at my sanity. I started noticing how she would disappear for hours without a word, leaving me with questions that went unanswered. "Where have you been tonight?" I asked during one of our rare shared dinners, the question hanging heavy between us. "I had a long day at work," she replied curtly, the brevity of her words as cold as the winter air outside. I couldn't help but feel that her explanations were as flimsy as the thin veil that separated truth from deceit. "I know something's off, Samantha," I whispered during one quiet night, the confession more to myself than to her. "Stop overthinking, Michael," came the immediate retort that did nothing to quiet the storm raging in my head. As days passed, I began to piece together fragments of inconsistencies, each one a small shard of evidence hinting at her hidden life. "It's not just overthinking," I pleaded one evening, my voice raw with desperation. "Please, just be honest with me." "Honesty? What are you talking about?" she challenged, her tone laced with an edge that made my heart sink further. The silence that followed was deafening, each second stretching into an eternity of unspoken words and unresolved tension. "I see you spending time on your phone when I'm not around," I remarked during a quiet moment, unable to hide my growing suspicion. "That's none of your business," she snapped, her words a sharp reminder of the distance that now separated us. I retreated into a swirl of introspection, every memory of laughter and love now tainted by the shadows of doubt. "I feel like I'm living in a lie," I murmured to the empty room, the confession echoing off the cold, unyielding walls. In my restless state, I began meticulously noting down every instance that felt like a betrayal, every moment that added another link to the chain of my suspicion. "I'm not paranoid," I assured myself, though deep down, the uncertainty was eating me alive. The doubts multiplied with each passing day, like a dark stain that spread uncontrollably, leaving me feeling isolated and broken. "Don't you trust me?" she once challenged during a heated exchange, her words slicing through the fragile remnants of our intimacy. "I'm trying to understand what's happening between us," I replied, the plea for truth mingling with a deep-seated fear of confronting the reality. That night, as I lay awake with only the dim glow of the streetlights for company, I realized that the shadow of doubt had become an uninvited yet persistent guest in the sanctuary of my heart. Chapter 4. The Revelation of Betrayal. It happened on a night that began like any other, with the weight of suspicion pressing heavily on my chest as I sat alone in our dimly lit living room. I decided that tonight I would finally confront the mysteries that had haunted me for weeks, determined to uncover the truth, no matter how painful it might be. "Samantha, we need to talk about us," I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging within me. Her eyes flashed with a mixture of irritation and something unidentifiable, and she replied coolly, "Not now, Michael." But as I persisted, the tension in the room thickened until her guard began to crumble, and I noticed the hesitation in her eyes. "There's something you're not telling me," I pressed, the urgency in my tone unmistakable, and she fell silent, unable to deflect any longer. In that moment, a stray notification on her phone caught my eye, and a cold, sinking feeling washed over me as I realized it was a message from an unknown number. My heart pounded as I gently pried the phone from her grasp, the screen illuminating a conversation that shattered every fragile illusion I had clung to. "I can't believe you're doing this on our anniversary," the text read, a damning confession that left no room for doubt. I stared at the screen in disbelief, each word etching a permanent scar into my soul, the betrayal unfolding before me, in brutal clarity. "Michael, I can explain," she stammered, but her voice was a hollow echo against the undeniable proof laid out before us. The evidence was irrefutable, a live broadcast of her on OnlyFans, streamed directly on CNN, exposing a secret life that had thrived under the guise of our marriage. "How could you do this?" I demanded, the words tumbling out in a mixture of anger and profound sorrow, unable to comprehend the magnitude of her deceit. "It was never meant to hurt you," she pleaded, her eyes filling with tears as she tried to rationalize a situation that was already irreparably broken. I felt as though the ground had vanished beneath me, my entire world collapsing into a chasm of betrayal and shattered trust. The public nature of her infidelity, broadcast live for the world to see, magnified my humiliation and left me questioning every moment we had shared. "You staged this, didn't you? The exposure, the scandal, was it all part of some sick plan?" I accused, my voice trembling with both rage and despair. Her silence in response was deafening, confirming my worst fears as the reality of her actions sank in with crushing weight. In that excruciating moment, I realized that everything I had believed in, every promise of loyalty and love, was nothing more than a cruel lie. The images on the screen played relentlessly in my mind, a montage of betrayal that haunted every corner of my being. "I never wanted to hurt you, Michael," she whispered again, her words now sounding like empty echoes of a love that had long since vanished. The revelation was a final blow, one that obliterated any remnants of the man I used to be, leaving me hollow and reeling from the shock. I felt the weight of 1,000 broken dreams as I confronted the undeniable truth. I had been living a lie while she led a double life. The room filled with an unbearable silence as I struggled to reconcile the love I thought we shared with the betrayal now laid bare before me. In that dark, solitary moment, I realized that nothing could ever bring back the innocence of our past, and that the path forward was now forever shrouded in the painful aftermath of her betrayal. Chapter 5. The Descent into Chaos. The shock of Samantha's betrayal plunged me into a chaos so profound that I felt as if I were drowning in a sea of despair. I wandered through the empty corridors of our home, every step echoing the loss of trust and the collapse of everything I once held dear. "How did we ever come to this?" I murmured to the darkness, my voice a raw blend of disbelief and agony. The images of that live broadcast haunted my every thought, replaying in my mind like a relentless nightmare I could neither escape nor forget. I locked myself away in the solitude of our study, desperate to make sense of the wreckage that now defined my existence. "I need to understand," I repeated over and over, as if the act of uttering these words could somehow restore the fragments of my broken reality. Night after night, I sat at my desk, surrounded by scattered notes and memories of happier times, each one now tainted by the bitter taste of betrayal. "This isn't just about you or me anymore," I whispered into the void, a confession to a world that had suddenly become unbearably cruel. The chaos wasn't limited to my internal world. It spilled over into every corner of my life, infecting my work, my friendships, and even my fleeting moments of solitude. I began to question every shared smile, every tender word, now suspecting that they were nothing more than elaborate illusions designed to lull me into complacency. "I trusted you completely." I found myself yelling into the silence of our once cherished sanctuary, the words a mixture of sorrow and fury. The nights grew darker, each one marked by sleepless hours as I wrestled with a torrent of emotions that threatened to consume me. I started recording my thoughts, desperate to capture every raw detail of my descent, as if writing them down could somehow anchor me to a reality that no longer existed. The chaos manifested not only in my thoughts, but also in the physical disarray that now defined my surrounding scattered papers, broken mementos, and shattered dreams littering the floor. I can't keep living like this, I muttered one particularly desperate night, my voice trembling with the weight of my own sorrow and regret. In the depths of my despair, I reached out to old friends, seeking solace in conversations that, despite their comforting words, only deepened my sense of isolation. I'm not the man I used to be, I confessed during one such call, the admission a painful acknowledgement of the person I had become under the strain of relentless betrayal. Every minute without answers felt like an eternity, and the chaos within me grew, fueled by a mixture of grief, anger, and an overwhelming need for retribution. It's all falling apart, I said, staring into the mirror as if expecting my reflection to offer some form of reassurance or solution. The face that stared back was gaunt and haunted, a stark reminder that the man who once believed in the sanctity of love was now a shell of shattered dreams. I scoured through every message and every memory, trying to piece together a coherent narrative from the fragments of our once perfect life. Every lie has led to this chaos, I stated bitterly, as if the simple act of naming my despair could dispel the darkness that had overtaken me. The weight of the betrayal pressed down on me, each memory a sharp reminder of a promise broken and a future lost to deception. Amidst the chaos, a simmering ember of resolve began to glow, fueled by the knowledge that I could no longer allow this betrayal to define me entirely. I will rise from this, even if it means destroying everything I once believed in, I declared into the stillness of the night, the words marking the first step towards reclaiming my shattered soul. Chapter 6. Crafting the Plan in the Shadows. In the aftermath of chaos, I realized that wallowing in despair would never bring back what was lost. So I began to plot a path that would restore not only my dignity, but also my sense of justice. I can't let this betrayal define me, I murmured into the darkness of my study, the quiet determination in my voice echoing off the walls as I opened a new chapter in my mind. I spent long hours researching every fragment of evidence, every whispered secret that had been carelessly left behind, as if they were breadcrumbs leading to my retribution. I deserve the truth and I deserve my revenge, I declared to the silent room, my words fueled by the burning need to reclaim control over my shattered life. Every late night was spent meticulously assembling a dossier of Samantha's deceit, combing through her messages, bank records, and the digital trails she thought were hidden. This isn't just about hurting her. It's about exposing the facade of perfection she so carefully constructed. I admitted to myself, a bitter resolve hardening within me, with every discovered secret. I sought out contacts who had suffered at her hands, forging alliances with those whose own pain mirrored my own, and who were eager to see justice served. We are not alone in this. We will expose the truth together, I insisted during a clandestine conversation with a former friend, whose voice trembled with both anger and hope. The network of individuals I built became my silent army, each willing to risk everything to bring her world crashing down in a public display of undeniable truth. I set my sights on the ultimate stage, a platform that would ensure her betrayal was witnessed by the world, and CNN emerged as the perfect battleground for our reckoning. Imagine the shock, the humiliation, when your secrets are broadcast live for all to see. I confided in a trusted contact, the excitement in my tone mingling with a grim determination. Every piece of evidence was carefully cross-referenced and stored securely, a digital arsenal poised to be unleashed at the precise moment when the stakes were highest. I designed a strategy that was as unconventional as it was precise, planning a series of maneuvers that would lead to an explosive revelation, one that would leave no room for denial. We will not let her continue to manipulate and destroy lives with her lies. I vowed during a hushed meeting in a dimly lit room, my eyes alight with the fire of resolve. I crafted a timeline of events, linking every inconsistency and every discarded truth into a narrative that would expose her duplicity beyond any doubt. Each night, I rehearsed my own transformation, shedding the remnants of the man I once was to become the avenger that the universe demanded I be. My silence has ended, and now every lie will be met with an equal measure of retribution. I whispered to the reflection in the mirror, steeling my resolve for what was to come. I set up multiple layers of digital security to protect my own identity, ensuring that my path to retribution would remain hidden until I was ready to strike. The plan evolved into a delicate dance of timing and precision. A chess match where every move was calculated to dismantle the false paradise she had created. We strike when she least expects it, when her defenses are down and her mask is about to fall. I explained over encrypted messages, my words firm with unyielding certainty. With every piece of evidence now in place, my mind raced with anticipation at the thought of the moment when the world would finally see the truth. I felt a surge of adrenaline as I visualized the live broadcast, where CNN would inadvertently become the stage for her ultimate downfall. This is your final act, Samantha, and the world will watch as the curtain falls on your deception, I murmured to myself, a blend of sorrow and resolve coloring every syllable. As the days passed, I rehearsed the confrontation in my mind repeatedly, each scenario more vivid and inevitable than the last, until the plan felt like an extension of my very being. In the quiet solitude of my study, surrounded by the digital relics of our broken promises, I made a solemn vow to dismantle the web of lies and restore my honor, one calculated step at a time. Chapter 7. Preempting the events. As the plan began to take shape in my mind, I felt a palpable surge of anticipation that eclipsed the sorrow of betrayal. Every waking moment was consumed with envisioning the precise moment when Samantha's carefully constructed facade would shatter irrevocably. I started orchestrating a series of moves designed to force her hand, a delicate dance of deception and revelation. The time has come, I murmured into the silent darkness of my study, my voice steady with determination. My heart pounded with a mixture of dread and exhilaration as I initiated the first phase of my strategy. I set a trap by leaking subtle hints to a few trusted contacts, carefully planting seeds that would bloom into a media frenzy. Watch closely, and soon the truth will be undeniable, I whispered to myself, the promise of retribution electrifying my every thought. In the days that followed, I executed controlled maneuvers to destabilize the comfortable world Samantha had built. This is only the beginning. I texted a reliable ally, the message simple yet loaded with the weight of impending consequence. Every detail was meticulously calculated, ensuring that even the slightest misstep would contribute to her downfall. I arranged for an anonymous tip to reach an investigative journalist known for unmasking deceit, embedding evidence that was impossible to ignore. Your secrets will come to light whether you like it or not, the message read, echoing my silent vow. I began to manipulate the digital space, creating a ripple effect that slowly drew attention to the inconsistencies in her narrative. Soon the truth will be on display for all to see. I confided in a close associate over a hushed phone call, my voice trembling with conviction. Every step I took was deliberate, designed to pressure her into making mistakes that would serve as damning evidence against her. I coordinated with tech experts to uncover more of her digital footprints, ensuring that every bit of data was aligned with my plan. The net is closing in, came a curt reply in one of our encrypted conversations, confirming that my message had reached its intended recipient. I monitored her every online move, ready to intercept any attempt to cover her tracks, and each new piece of information fueled my resolve. You won't escape this, Samantha. I wrote in an anonymous email to a minor influencer she trusted, the words a promise of imminent exposure. With each passing hour, the network of collaborators grew, and the orchestrated symphony of betrayal and retribution started to resonate. I watched as her digital persona began to flicker, small cracks appearing in the glossy veneer of her carefully managed image. The dominoes are falling, I noted in my journal, recording every micro movement that indicated my plan was unfolding perfectly. I felt a perverse satisfaction in knowing that every lie she had spun was now being systematically dismantled by forces she could no longer control. The tension reached a fever pitch as I coordinated a final round of data leaks, ensuring that the forthcoming broadcast would be unequivocal. This is the moment of reckoning, I declared into the void of my now silent study, every word resonating with the certainty of a fate long overdue. Chapter 8. The Public Unveiling. The day of reckoning had arrived, and I stood before a wall of monitors as every detail of my plan sprang to life. In a quiet command center, I coordinated with my allies, each keystroke bringing us closer to the moment when Samantha's lies would be exposed. The evidence is ready. A trusted friend texted, the message sending a surge of anticipation through my veins. I took a deep breath and prepared to launch the final Fuzzy live, unfiltered broadcast that would shake the very foundation of her carefully built world. This is for every truth you buried, I murmured under my breath as I hit the button that would send our meticulously gathered proof to CNN. In an instant, The screen exploded with images and video seech a damning piece of evidence showcasing the life Samantha had hidden behind a facade of loyalty. "Look at this," a colleague said over the secure line, excitement lacing his tone as he pointed to a particularly explosive clip. The broadcast was unlike anything the world had ever seen, a raw, unedited sequence of secrets and betrayals laid out for millions. "Your double life is over, Samantha." My inner voice thundered as I watched the headlines ripple across every major news outlet. Social media erupted, and messages flooded in from viewers shocked by the scandal unfolding live before their eyes. "How could you do this?" someone tweeted, the question hanging in the digital ether as the evidence left no room for doubt. I monitored the live feed with bated breath, every passing second a reminder that justice was no longer a distant dream, but a blazing reality. "This is the truth, and no one can deny it." Another voice echoed through our encrypted chat, the sentiment shared by countless supporters of our cause. The camera panned over the damning images, capturing the stark reality of Samantha's actions, every frame a testament to her betrayal. "We're done hiding behind lies," I declared, the words resonating with the resolve that had carried me through the darkest nights of despair. The broadcast shifted gears, seamlessly connecting every piece of evidence into a narrative that left viewers with a clear, unambiguous picture of deception. I felt a mix of relief and sorrow as I realized that the world now knew the truth, and with it came the irreversible end of the life we had once shared. "There's no escaping what you've done," came a comment from an influential journalist, the phrase serving as a final nail in the coffin of her duplicity. As the story spread, interviews and expert analyses filled the airwaves, each reinforcing the severity of the betrayal that had rocked our lives. This isn't just personal, it's a reckoning for all who dare to manipulate trust, I thought, the weight of the moment sinking in with every passing headline. The live broadcast continued for hours, every update a reminder that the era of deception was drawing to a definitive close. I could almost hear the collective gasp of the nation as the truth, once hidden in shadows, burst forth into the glaring light of public scrutiny. "There is no turning back now," someone remarked in a live chat, their words punctuating the finality of the moment with a note of solemn finality. I watched as Samantha's carefully curated image crumbled under the onslaught of undeniable facts, the world witnessing her fall from grace in real time. In that electrifying moment of exposure, I realized that even the deepest betrayals could be overcome by the relentless pursuit of truth, marking a turning point that would forever redefine my understanding of justice. Chapter 9. The Aftermath of the Explosion. The immediate fallout from the broadcast rippled through every aspect of my life, leaving me both vindicated and emotionally raw as I faced the consequences of exposing Samantha's treachery. I never imagined the world would react like this. I confessed to a friend over a late-night call, the shock in my voice betraying the gravity of the moment. The media frenzy had turned every headline into a mirror reflecting the scandal in vivid detail, and I felt the weight of public opinion pressing down on me with every passing minute. "Your story is everywhere," someone said, their tone both sympathetic and cautious, as I scrolled through endless news feeds and social media posts. As the news spread, I found myself inundated with messages from strangers, some expressing admiration for my courage, others offering condolences for the shattered remnants of what once was. I noticed legal advisors reaching out, their inquiries a stark reminder that my path to retribution now entangled me in a labyrinth of potential lawsuits and public scrutiny. "I have to be careful now," I admitted to myself, the realization that every move I made was under the relentless gaze of a judgmental society weighing heavily on my conscience. My phone buzzed incessantly with calls and texts, each message a mix of praise, accusation, and questions about the finer details of the explosive broadcast. "How will you rebuild your life after all this?" one concerned voice asked during a brief, heartfelt conversation, the uncertainty in their tone echoing my own internal turmoil. The shock of the revelations left me reeling, and I found solace in the quiet corners of my home where the relentless buzz of public outrage could momentarily fade away. Friends and family began to share their own versions of events, their voices overlapping in a chorus of disbelief and sorrow that left me feeling even more isolated. "I never wanted any of this to happen," I murmured during one of those intimate phone calls, my words lost in the static of regret and newfound resolve. The legal repercussions started unfolding quickly, with lawyers discussing potential charges and defamation suits that now loomed over both Samantha and me. In the midst of the chaos, I received a private message from someone who had once been a close friend of Samantha, their tone laced with a mix of guilt and relief. "You deserve the truth, Michael, but this will change everything." they warned. A final note of caution that resonated deeply within me. I took a moment to reflect on the journey that had led me here. Each memory a blend of love, betrayal, and a desperate quest for justice that had forever altered my soul. This isn't just your fight anymore, I reminded myself, realizing that the repercussions extended far beyond my personal loss and had become a battle for accountability in a corrupt system. The public outcry grew louder by the hour, with influential voices in the media condemning the manipulation and deceit that had been so brazenly exposed. I sat in the quiet of my study, the glow of the monitors reflecting a newfound determination to see this through, even as doubts about my future crept in. We must face the consequences head-on, I declared during a meeting with a few trusted allies, their nods affirming that our mission was far from over. The exposure had ignited a chain reaction, leading to internal investigations and the eventual dismantling of networks that had enabled Samantha's double life to flourish. Critics argued, supporters rallied, and amidst it all, I wrestled with the reality that my quest for truth had forever altered the lives of everyone involved. "There's no going back now," I said quietly, my voice steady as I prepared to navigate the legal, emotional, and social repercussions that lay ahead. The broadcast had been a catalyst of force that uprooted the carefully constructed facade of deception, leaving only the raw, unvarnished truth in its wake. As I closed my eyes that night, I realized that while the explosion of scandal had left my world irreversibly changed, it also opened a door to new beginnings, urging me to rebuild a life founded on honesty and resilience. Chapter 10. The Final Blow. The days following the broadcast felt like the calm before another storm. The dust had settled, but the embers of Samantha's downfall still burned, waiting for the right gust of wind to ignite a final inferno. "She's trying to fight back." A journalist texted me, attaching a screenshot of a weak public statement Samantha had released. In it, she painted herself as the victim claimed I had violated her privacy, twisted the truth, and manipulated the world into turning against her. "Desperate," I muttered, shaking my head as I scrolled through the thousands of comments under her post, the majority of which ridiculed her pathetic attempt at damage control. But I knew better than to underestimate her. People like Samantha always had another trick up their sleeve, another card to play when the world was ready to throw them away. "She won't stop unless I end this completely," I thought, my fingers tapping rhythmically against the wooden surface of my desk. That's when I received an email and anonymous tip containing something that sent a chill down my spine. Attached were documents, messages, bank statements, evidence that Samantha had been involved in something far bigger than just infidelity. "What the hell is this?" I whispered to myself as I read through them, realizing that her betrayal ran deeper than I had ever imagined. She wasn't just cheating, she had been laundering money through her OnlyFans, using fake accounts to funnel illegal transactions under the radar. Suddenly, everything made sense. The luxurious gifts, the sudden financial independence, the smug arrogance she carried even when she knew I was closing in. She thought she was untouchable. I mused, my grip tightening around the phone as I realized the true weight of what I had just uncovered. I knew what had to be done. The broadcast had ruined her image, but this would bury her forever. "How do I get this into the right hands?" I asked aloud, already mentally crafting the final move of my game. A few phone calls later, I had secured a meeting with a federal investigator, a man who had been working on cases like this for years. "This is more than just a personal vendetta," I told him, sliding the documents across the table. "This is a criminal operation hiding in plain sight." He scanned the files, his face darkening with every passing second. When he finally looked up, there was a glint in his eyes, excitement, mixed with the grim understanding that this was about to blow up on a national level. "We've been trying to crack down on these kinds of operations for months," he admitted. "And now, thanks to you, we finally have a name to start with." I left the meeting feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Justice wasn't just coming, it was inevitable. Within hours, news broke that federal authorities were opening an investigation into Samantha's financial activities. Her last desperate attempt to play the victim crumbled as real consequences loomed over her. The internet erupted once more, only this time there was no sympathy left for her. "She's finished," I told myself, watching the downfall unfold in real time across every major news outlet. Samantha had spent years crafting a false reality, weaving lies so intricately that she almost believed them herself. But the truth had a way of catching up to those who ran from it, and now there was nowhere left for her to hide. I had set out for revenge, but in the end, I had delivered something far greater justice. Chapter 11. The Price of Revenge. The moment I had been waiting for had arrived. Samantha was arrested in the early hours of the morning, her face plastered across every news channel, her name forever associated with scandal and crime. Breaking. OnlyFans model exposed in money laundering scandal, FI investigation underway, the headline screamed. I watched as she was led away in handcuffs, her carefully curated world crumbling around her. There was no glamour left, no fake smiles, no seductive charm, just the hollow, empty stare of someone who knew it was over. The footage played on every major network, and for the first time, I felt something close to peace. My phone buzzed relentlessly, messages from friends, journalists, even complete strangers who had followed the entire saga. You did it, one of them wrote. She finally got what she deserved. But as I stared at the screen, a strange emptiness settled in my chest. I had won. I had executed the perfect revenge. And yet, why didn't it feel as satisfying as I had imagined? The world moved on quickly, as it always did. Scandals came and went. New dramas took center stage. And soon, Samantha was just another name in a long list of disgraced public figures. But for me, the scars remained. I had built my entire life around exposing her, making sure she paid for what she did. And now that it was over, I realized something terrifying. I didn't know who I was without this fight. What do I do now? I whispered to myself, staring at the empty walls of my apartment. Revenge had consumed me, defined me. It had been my purpose, my fuel. And now, without it, I felt lost. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had destroyed Samantha. But in doing so, I had also destroyed a part of myself. I had thought revenge would heal me, that exposing the truth would bring closure. But the truth was, no matter how much justice was served, the past couldn't be erased. Samantha would pay for her crimes, but I would live with the memories forever. I walked to my window, staring out at the city below, realizing that my next battle wouldn't be against her. It would be against myself, against the demons I had created in my pursuit of vengeance. The story was over, but the consequences of my choices were only beginning. Was it worth it? That was the question that haunted me now. I had gotten everything I wanted. And yet, I still felt empty. Maybe that was the real lesson. Maybe true justice isn't about revenge, it's about learning to let go. But could I ever let go? And that's the end of my story. But let me ask you, was I right? Or did I go too far? Would you have done the same in my place? Or was there another way? Tell me what you think in the comments. Let's talk about it. And if you want more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe. Because trust me, this isn't the last time we expose the truth.